This is Comic Geek Speak, Book of the Month Club, Episode 2. This is Comic Geek Speak in conjunction with WorldFamousComics.com, the best spot on the internet for all your comics news. This is our second Book of the Month Club episode, and in this episode, we are going to be doing Daredevil, Guardian Devil. I'm Brian Deemer.
I'm Shane Kelly.
I'm Kevin Moyer.
I'm Jamie D.
I'm Peter Rios.
And welcome to our show. So, guys, Daredevil, Guardian Devil, written by Kevin Smith, drawn by Joe Quesada. We picked it because we liked it, so what else are we going to say?
That's it. Okay, bye.
Our shortest episode ever.
It's one of my favorite Daredevil stories that I've read because it not only utilizes Daredevil, of course, but Mysterio, which I absolutely love. I don't think he's used enough in the Marvel Universe. I loved him ever since the old 70s cartoon.
I agree, because it's a character who has a lot of potential and is always misused, and underused, I should say. And that was like the second time in all the years that he's actually been used as a serious type villain.
Yeah, he did a good job messing with him.
Very much so. Very much so.
And this was the first real serious comic that Kevin Smith ever wrote, correct?
Yes.
At least definitely his first work from a major publisher.
Right.
Because did he do like the Clerks miniseries or something, or was that even somebody else who wrote that?
I think he did something with that in some fashion, either a one-shot
I can't remember
or a small
if that was before or after this or what.
I think it was. I think he had done something with Jay and Silent Bob before.
Yeah.
On like Oni Press or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, it was the only double feature starring, Jay and Silent Bob, and I thought he did write the Clerks miniseries. I'm pretty sure on that.
I think he might have. Yeah.
And then this became, when they decided to revamp Daredevil and just start, relaunch him basically. Kevin Smith got him to write him because, not Kevin Smith got him to write it. Joe Quesada got Kevin Smith to write it because Kevin Smith was a big Daredevil fan and wanted the job.
Yeah. Oh,
This was also I don't know if it was the first one in the line, but it was one of the first 4 of Marvel Nights, of the new Marvel Lights.
Yeah, I think it was the first. Well,
it was
the very
probably
first one. Right?
Yeah, it was the first one, and
Okay.
last one to be completed.
Yes.
Of course. Oh, by the way, this is a completely spoiler-filled episode, so if you haven't read Guardian Devil and you don't want anything ruined for you, stop listening now.
Yeah, the weird thing too is
You should have stopped listening about 5 minutes ago, but that's all right.
Before I said about Mysterio. And
it also it's kind of hard to talk about this one and not talk about Born Again a little bit. So if you haven't read Born Again, you might want to decide whether you want to, because we try to keep the spoilers only to the book that we're reading, but this one's kind of difficult. So
Took the words right out of my mouth, because I was gonna. There is a good bridge for those two stories together with this, so to talk about one and not talk about the other one is almost not impossible, but
it's difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult.
it's still all right. I'll read Born Again at some point.
I still haven't read.
No, I never read Born Again.
Oh,
no,
man.
I never did.
Get out.
No. Get out.
Well, I mean, reading the story itself, you get enough of Mysterio's monologue to Daredevil about what he did is pretty much a synopsis of the Born Again a little. I mean, there's more to it, like anything, but it pretty well synopsizes the. If that's even a word.
Synopsizes.
I was gonna say it's my word now. It pretty much wraps that up. So I mean, if you didn't read it, you're not going to miss anything. If you've read it, it just adds another layer onto it.
So who wants to give a short synopsis of this story?
I think
Just so
Kevin
we're all-
should.
Yeah, just since we're all
A short one, though. Kevin, is not known for his, curtness. Yes.
Well, this was an interesting story. It started out with the return of Karen Page, which you hadn't seen for a while in the book.
When can I ask?
See,
you're interrupting already.
This is the purpose of this episode, to completely dissect
I was going to ask
these
the same
8
thing,
issues.
so it's okay.
Before she reappeared in Guardian Devil,
When
was the last time we saw Karen Page?
In Born Again.
That
Really?
long ago.
No, I'm sorry. If she was in Born Again and then she was gone for a while and then she came back And then they did the whole thing with the working for Fisk on his radio station and becoming the morning angel, and her radio show getting very popular. And that leads into the beginning of Guardian Devil with his letter that she wrote him.
Okay.
So, I mean, from the
from
the time that she left Daredevil in issue 61 or 63 of the series, and wasn't seen again until Born Again, which was issue 219. I mean 227. I'm sorry, 227. And then that whole story took place, and then she was around, but she wasn't a prominent character. And the writers that took over after Frank Miller didn't really utilize her until later on in the later 300s, when she came back, and that's when she got the radio show and all that. So it was quite a period of time. I can't say exactly how many issues, but it was quite a long period of time again where she kind of disappeared or stayed in the background, that you might have been referenced to, or you might have seen her a little bit, but she wasn't a prominent secondary character.
So this letter that she writes him, like if we take the last issue before Kevin Smith's run, they're together?
No.
Oh, they're not? So he's reading an older letter.
Yeah, the letter that she writes him
is before that reappearance,
right?
After Born Again,
because, well, like I said, after Born Again, she later on, before the end of the first series, that's when she had the morning show, and she was a prominent character for about 20 some issues or so.
So she wrote that letter before those 20 issues,
right? And then that's when because they offered her the radio show and offered her to go to Hollywood, and that was her goodbye letter to him.
Okay.
So that's why she left and decided to take the job and go to California and do the radio show rather than stay with him and stay in New York City.
See, that puts a whole different spin on that then, because I thought she was around up to Kevin Smith's run and that she wrote the letter then.
I mean,
so that kind of...
She was... I don't know the exact issue, but I think Daredevil ended in like 380. So, I mean, she was in the 360s. She was still... That's when she started doing the radio shows. Right, but I mean, if you look at the time frame,
right,
not the time frame where the issues came out, but the time frame that took place from the end of 380 until this series took over, it was months.
So he was really in bad sorts for a while.
Right, I mean, and it was the relationship that they had rebuilt then when she was doing the morning show and doing all the stuff and was in New York. They were living together again. The relationship was growing and becoming strong, and that's why this was so powerful, because she made that choice.
She got the offer to go out.
Right, to take that opportunity.
How art imitates life. Somebody going to...
Oh, boy.
All right, anyway.
So immediately, I mean, you start out with the first issue, and he already put a big spin on you right off the bat, and it really pulls you right into Matt Murdock Daredevil, because, I mean, you just totally feel for the guy and really what's going on. The interesting thing was they did a prelude to this on the web. It was like a little issue zero. It was like a little animated thing. And it was all just Quesada's art, written by Kevin Smith. And it was a little flash animation kind of thing that led up to him coming in the window and getting the letter. And she had left without saying goodbye and just gave him the letter. So it was very powerful.
Back to your synopsis.
And then it leads into this woman, Gwyneth, who has a baby and believes that it's through immaculate conception. And... believes that he is a savior, and is directed to give the baby to Matt Murdock to protect him. And that is her mission. She believes this is what she is being told by the angels. So, of course, there's Matt Murdock getting handed an infant, and and then getting laid on top of it the fact that it's possibly the savior, the rebirth of Christ, possibly. Which really sets up the whole religious aspect and theme behind a lot of this story. So, of course, it starts with him trying to deal with that, trying to understand what's going on. He calls Natasha, the Black Widow, in to help him out because he's trying to figure out what's going on, as well as who's trying to get this girl because she's, people try to kidnap her or kill her. So he stops him as Daredevil, and he's trying to figure out why all this is going on. Is this true? What's happening? So he can't do that while trying to take care of a baby. So he calls Natasha in, so she gets brought into the story, which is the dynamic between them is done wonderfully well. And then the story continues with him trying to discover what's happening. And as this is being brought out, Karen comes back.
Well, things start happening around him, right? Like,
well, yeah, I mean,
with bad things start happening.
Yeah, the whole story. I mean, I don't know how much detail you wanted to get into it, but
just
there's things start falling apart around him, And this is what makes him believe more so that what he is being told is possibly true. As he questions this more and more, these other events that are taking part in his life are making him believe what is actually happening, and that steers him in that direction, so to speak. So he never has a true understanding of everything, but as the more it takes place, the more he actually starts to believe it.
Can I interject here and just? I'm just kind of paging through the first issue to remind myself, and I'm just realizing that this is a great first issue. Like, if you had never read Daredevil before, and this was your first exposure to him, you really learn a lot about the character and about his powers. Like, the whole bit where he's in the confessional and he hears the heartbeats, and then he keeps going through the issue about, oh, there are those heartbeats again. Like, you learn that his hearing is so good that he can tell the difference between two humans' heartbeats as a unique signature. Whether or not that's medically accurate or not is beside the point. It's just an interesting insight into his powers, and so then, that's just a really great way of introducing the hero. We just got some weird feedback on the microphones or something, and everyone started looking like, what's going on? I don't know. It's probably just our headphones.
I agree, and that's the whole thing about this whole storyline. I think Kevin Smith writes an incredibly wonderful tale. It's very well paced. You get all the action, all the adventure, all the interest, the drama, everything that isn't a good story. I mean, all the character driven, the whole background, so you understand everything. There's nothing left. There's a lot of ambiguity about the characters or anything. Everything is well explained. And with Joe Quesada's storytelling and his art, he does a fabulous job telling this story visually, which adds to the script, which it was amazing to begin with. So it's a very powerful story, both visually and story-wise.
Yeah, you can, criticize Joe Quesada, if you will, for some of his choices as editor-in-chief, but as far as his artistic talents, he's quite good.
Oh, yeah. He put his heart and soul in this.
Absolutely.
This is one of my favorite things that he's done, is this story.
I mean, and you can see that. I mean, he went after Kevin Smith to do this. That was his drive to do that. He wanted Kevin Smith on this book. And when he got him, he wanted to draw this book, and he did. He drew the best issues that I've ever seen him draw. I mean, I loved all his other stuff with the Ray and things like that he did with Valiant and such. But this stuff is just out of this world. This storytelling it floored me with his storytelling in this.
I have one of my favorite posters that he did is a Batman and Robin poster with all the villains around, and it's from the viewpoint of you looking up at the sky and seeing Batman and Robin come down. Excuse me, and within the view is all the big rogues gallery right around in a circle looking up going, uh-oh. And it's gorgeous, but nothing compared to what he's done in this Daredevil story.
Right.
Just to push the synopsis a little further then, in comes this character, Nicholas Macabre.
Macabre, right.
Who kind of turns everything around 180 degrees,
Right. That's the whole big setup. That's a big turn right there. Because not only
Do you think
for Matt...
it's Macabre or Maccabee?
It's Macabre.
Is it?
It's Macabre.
Maccabee. I took it as Macabre.
It is Macabre.
Just a reference to...
Well, Macabre, if you look in the dictionary, it's spelled that way. So, but
yeah,
he is. He's pivotal.
Oh, it does have an R in it.
It's Nicholas, Macabes. Maccabees.
Oh, I thought it was...
Oh, see, I can take that still as being Macabre. Just
reference to Macabre,
Yeah, Macabre.
But he does.
Yeah.
He's pivotal in turning the story.
Yeah.
Kevin Smith, if you're listening, please send me an email and let me know.
Because he pivots Matt Murdock, which you'll learn later on in the story why. And then when Matt's gone and he's actually flipping out about this whole thing, Karen comes back and this Nicholas Macabre's...
Let's ask the hi-fi design people. Is it Macabre or what do you say?
Can't ask him, is it Macabre?
Is it Macabre? Positively.
That thing's been wrong
There we
before.
go. The hi-fi 8 ball tells us.
But we like that answer.
But he, when he comes back and talks to Karen when Matt is not there, he also puts the spin on her then as well, and then she believes she has AIDS, and then that also brings into the fact that he says to her, well, you can also transmit this. So immediately she thinks, well, now Daredevil has AIDS. She gave AIDS to Matt. So that just keeps pulling you in further and further and further, and you're feeling that journey as well as Matt's doing it, because you're being pulled into the story just as well as he is. So it's very, very well done in that essence, that you're actually experiencing the story as he is as well.
Kevin Smith really took that aspect of Born Again, that religious aspect, the introduction of Maggie as his mother as the nun, and I didn't read many issues between Born Again and this, so I don't know if that was ever touched upon again. No. But in this one, it was like, and of course Kevin Smith has his own viewpoints about religion.
Watch Dogma, you'll see the whole thing, and that's what made this story special, because Frank Miller introduced Maggie in Born Again, and that's the first time that she's ever been mentioned. And after that, she wasn't used. She wasn't utilized.
What is Matt? Is he Irish?
Yes.
So Irish, growing up in New York,
Catholic.
Catholic.
Yeah,
I mean,
Catholic
he would
Irish.
be very. I mean,
There's
I thought
a lot
that
of
was
dogma
a great.
there in his whole background.
Yeah.
So it plays upon that incredibly. This is the first time that you actually see Maggie, and she actually talks, and you interact with her as a character. That has never happened before. This storyline took place. So he just takes exactly what Frank Miller did in Born Again and totally expands upon it 10 times, tenfold. And you really get to experience Maggie and her influence on Matt. I think some of the most powerful scenes are the interactions between Matt and Maggie, talking about religious and dealing with the whole separation between them for all his life, thinking that she was dead, wasn't even around, didn't even exist, yet alone to be a nun and to have this whole dogma thing behind yet besides.
I thought that was something the movie also did very well, was touch upon his religious background.
I mean, and if you would have seen the director's cut, absolutely, because you get to see that scene where she's just like in Born Again.
Oh, that's right.
She's leaning right over him with the cross there. I mean, it's like boom,
Yeah.
I mean, those scenes,
very prominent.
Absolutely.
Is she figured into any of Bendis' run?
No.
No.
No, she had, again, not utilized again.
I wonder if that's something that they have to ask, like, Frank Miller's permission to use that character, or...
I'm sure, knowing Bendis' track record, he would, because he's done that with everything that he's touched upon. Mm-hmm. If he utilizes a character, he respects the creator of that character, whether or not they own it or not, and he will talk to him, like he just did with the Sentry. Before he did anything with Sentry, he went and talked to Paul Jenkins and got his blessing, so to speak, and told him what he was going to do with the character. And Jenkins loved it so much, he said, sure, do it, and then he decided to do the miniseries afterwards. So it's a whole growth thing. And it's just a respect, and he does that a lot. He respects everybody for what they've done and utilizes that. He wouldn't just go and tread on that and just not acknowledge it in some way, shape, or form.
And what kills me about that is, like, they don't use Maggie, but yet they'll turn... As soon as that issue was over, like a couple months later, they just totally negated the story practically with the reintroduction of another Mysterio somewhere, or the same one, or whatever.
It was explained it wasn't the same Mysterio. It was a different Mysterio. That was in that miniseries.
Has he been back since then?
No,
he hasn't.
So. No, not that I'm aware of.
Oh, well, kudos for that then.
Yeah.
So,
hey, we have a couple emails here from listeners giving their thoughts on Guardian Devil, so I'm gonna read the first one. It's from Jude
Law?
Drew J, not Drew Day, or whatever I was going to say. It's, hey guys, hope you had fun in San Diego. It was cool hearing your guys' thoughts about the convention, and I enjoyed the interview with Peter David. I'm ecstatic that he's writing a new X Factor, even though it means now I'll have to buy the Madrox trade to get the backstory. But anyway, my main reason for writing is to discuss Daredevil, Guardian Devil. I really like how Kevin Smith sets up the story. Within the opening pages of the storyline, you're immediately brought up to speed regarding Daredevil's current status quo. I also like that in those first few issues, Smith never forgets that Daredevil is also a lawyer and incorporates that into his superheroing. One of my favorite throwaway lines in the first issue is how Matt helped New York City out by implementing a superhero insurance clause. What I like most about the storyline, though, is Kevin Smith's dialogue. While I enjoy his movies, I can't say I'm obsessed with his work. This story, however, is beautifully written. The dialogue in the book is like music, especially with the seamless flashbacks to Matt and Karen's relationship that Matt has after her death. They're poignant, heartbreaking, and you can just feel the emotion coming from the two of them in the flashback scenes, and the emotion Matt feels revisiting these memories. Even the exposition is handled extremely well, and there is a ton of exposition in the story. However, something is always going on, and it doesn't feel like the characters are just talking heads. The storyline also made me wish that Smith could write a Doctor Strange series. I've never really gotten into Doctor Strange before, but Smith's portrayal of Strange is just damn cool, even if all he did was summon Mephisto.
Is that it?
Yeah, he just called the Hellspawn
just conjure up
himself.
Mephisto. That's
The only real problem I have with this issue is Karen Page's funeral. Matt Murdock makes a comment along the lines of, "It's weird pretending to be a blind lawyer around the only person who really knew the truth about me. Yet there are other heroes in the background. So for whose benefit is he pretending? Peter Parker's, the Thing's, Stan Lee's, the Priest's?" While that was a good line, I just didn't see the logic behind it, considering most heroes knew DD's real identity anyway. And if the FF or other heroes didn't know back then, why was the Thing at the funeral? Maybe I'm thinking too much. Instead of continuing my nitpicking, I think I'll just end this email and sign off. Thanks for the opportunity to share, guys. I'm looking forward to hearing other geeks' comments. Well, I was thinking about that too. And I think because she was a TV celebrity, that's why we're supposed to assume that famous people are at her funeral, right?
I don't know. I mean, I never got that. I never got that feeling. I questioned that myself. Every time I read the book, I question that because not all the heroes know who Daredevil is. I mean, at that time, this is before this whole Out saga with Bendis and all that. So, I mean, I don't understand why all those heroes would be there.
I think it's just as simple as Quesada just likes to draw little nods to, because the one thing I do complain about his artwork is all the. What are you going to say? The same thing I'm saying? Go.
No. I'm going to tell you why they were there.
Oh, why?
Because don't you remember the Fantastic Four hired Matt Murdock to represent them, and Karen Page was the secretary at that time, and you can add all that onto it. But there is a backstory where there is a relationship between Matt Murdock and the Fantastic Four. So I didn't have any kind of stretch seeing the Fantastic Four there. Spider-Man knows who Matt Murdock is. He has known for a while. But I never got the fact that FF knew who he was.
Let me just finish this thought. Just the thing about the art in Quesada is all the references, like to. It's all in like the first issues and stuff like that. There's references like Jay and Silent Bob.
Well, yeah, and here, I mean, Kevin Smith is in the church crying,
right.
And he's sitting next to Joe Quesada,
right.
And there's another guy next to Quesada. I'm not sure who he's supposed to be, if he's supposed to be anybody, but
colorist or something.
This guy's looking at him, and Quesada's looking at him, and Stan Lee is there.
That's kind of cool.
Who's the like barbarian guy with the skull and?
I don't know. Honestly, I do not know. I thought of that myself. I was thinking. Because it looks like Kraven or Calypso, that kind of thing. But
I think you're right. But he has a monkey. Unless that's Black Panther and that's his what's his name, Mabuku or something like that. His
the spirit
manservant.
Yeah. Okay.
I always like those kind of things in any book where they throw in special background stuff like that.
I mean, and there's one farther on down the road in like the issue where he's going to find Mysterio or find out what it is. He goes into a bar. And in the background, there's Marv. There's a couple of other DC Dark Horse characters sitting in that bar.
That drives me nuts sometimes.
And then did you
read
I
like it.
The dialogue that Turk's telling the story about how he killed Daredevil, and it's all a reference to Batman.
Yeah. Oh, and also, did you see? It's right on the page before the funeral scene. There's a broadcaster on TV, and it's Clark Kent.
Clark Kent.
Yeah. It's got to be Clark. I mean.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was looking at something else.
I did a little double take on that. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah. There's a lot of neat things like that, and that's something that shows that an artist, and when he's doing a book like that, cares about, and he's having fun with it.
I wonder if, Kevin Smith always had a certain amount of love for Star Wars, obviously, but there's that one 3-panel section where they show a little clip from Jaws, a little clip from Star Wars, and one from Terminator. I wonder if that was him and Joe Quesada putting in like their favorite movies, or just Kevin Smith doing it himself, but it was still neat the way they did it.
I mean, it explains it as Mysterio is giving his dialogue,
right.
Because he's saying, about how he feels he's better at doing all these effects than Spielberg and Cameron.
And they list the names, man. He's going through.
He goes all for it.
Officer Just Goes. It's a donut shop.
Yeah.
Ash is a graffiti.
Yeah. Well, do you see that it says now playing Steven Spielberg's Ash? It's like on the very first page of the issue.
Isn't that the guy that's sitting next to Quesada at the funeral? Isn't that Ash, the character Ash?
Oh, it could be. Or was it the Ray?
Because he's a fireman. He's a fireman. The Ash, the character Ash.
But you look at his uniform in the funeral scene. It might be the Ray.
I don't know.
He's got his shirt on, but not anything else.
I don't know. It looks to me like a fireman's jacket with a yellow stripe, going across. Isn't that how Ash's costume is? Like a black coat with like a yellow stripe going across?
And that could be why Quesada's looking at it.
Right, because that's their character that he created with Palmiotti.
I don't know.
Anyway, I never read Ash, so I don't know.
It's close.
Anyway, way off base.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's not. Never mind. It does look like a fireman's jacket. It's not a.
There is some, I think even in Wizard they actually broke down all the characters.
I
who was in
wish
there.
I still had that email where Quesada at some point talked about all the things he did in the background of all this artwork throughout all 8 issues. Things that he played with the shadows and the glasses.
Oh yeah, there's exclamation points.
Yeah, I mean, there's things
in
that
his
he
eyes,
did
or
in here
question marks
that
sometimes.
Sometimes you pick up, or some things you don't even pick up. But when it's pointed out, it's like, wow.
And I think this artwork is so much better than what he's currently doing on things.
Yeah.
It's just so much cleaner.
Well, he's. I mean, not that it's really an excuse, but to give him a little fairness, he is out of practice. I mean, he draws one pin-up a month or something, as opposed to 22 pages. So you're gonna get.
Plus, I think,
and he's trying something new. So
yeah, I mean, he said he stated a couple times he's deliberately using a new style.
Right.
He's basically adapting and trying new things. So it is a lot of that. But also, he doesn't have the time.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not that he had tons of time when he was, being editor-in-chief of Marvel Knights, but he has less time now than he did then.
Oh, sure.
So that's why you don't get that same feel from, reading Daredevil Father, the first issue. I didn't get any of the feel like I got reading Guardian Devil, because that storytelling is just totally different.
And I meant that more of, it's a shame that we can't get more stuff like this out of him anymore.
And I mean, I guess we got to give him time to perfect his new style, because if people never came up with new styles, we'd never have Sin City.
Right.
We never have a lot of stuff.
Right.
I mean,
So
you got to, there is artist
stumble along
interpretation.
the way, but I'm confident that he's a good enough artist that he'll figure out whatever it is he's trying to do.
And even his writing has been, like the
Those
Man in the
Iron
Iron
Man
Mask was good, So I mean, they're good stories. They weren't terrible stories. They were good stories. So I mean, I'm intrigued to read Daredevil Father. I don't think it's going to be at the caliber of this,
completely comes out,
which finally will start in August. So
What was it explained? I'm still a little shaky on the whole birth that she. Was she?
It's explained in there that she was artificially inseminated.
Okay.
By Mysterio.
Okay.
And then
It's been a while since I've read it.
yeah, well, and
Oh, you didn't
through.
reread it?
I got through a couple pages and.
Oh, even I did better than that this time.
No, I'm sorry. I got through a couple issues. I'm sorry. While I was here house sitting, and then I never finished it. So.
yeah, it's explained in the end when he's doing his whole kind of soliloquy to Daredevil at the end, and he states he basically describes how everything he set all this up,
Right.
and that was part of it, that she was artificially inseminated, and through those drugs, was believed that she was from Immaculate Conception, and then her parents are killed, so their parents are dead, and that whole thing, he set all that up, thought it all out, and did this whole grand scheme, and
Which again, it's
executed
such a
all.
great use of Mysterio as a
Absolutely.
character.
Oh yeah.
Is it maybe the coolest use of Mysterio?
It is.
Yeah.
It almost, I would say, is right up there, because the other one that I've always said was in Amazing Spider-Man that Marv Wolfman wrote in like 196, 197, 198, 199 of Amazing Spider-Man, that he had Mysterio as the villain, and Spider-Man never caught him because he just kept outsmarting him. Every time at the end of the issue, it's like a cliffhanger, and you think he was going to get it, and he just totally outsmarted him. So he never caught him. And that, to me, was the first time that somebody ever used Mysterio to the full potential of what Mysterio could be. Because that's the kind of villain Mysterio would be. The total, trickster, of having all the holograms and the special effects and things, and making you believe, things you're not seeing or you are seeing. Which is interesting that you use that with Daredevil, because he doesn't see all this stuff.
Yeah.
But he still got to him. So it just goes to show how smart he is. He's not just some thug in a cool costume with special effects.
Now, to be ultra geeky and to nitpick a little, not nitpick, but analyze, how come Daredevil couldn't tell that he was lying when he was playing the role of Macabre or Maccabees or whatever?
Because he was under the influence of that drug. Anytime Macabre came in, he was wearing that he had it on him, and then also he gave him that cross.
And
then it infused in his body, and that's when you listen to Doctor Strange talk about it. It's in your system, and the only way he got it out is finally Doctor Strange cast that spell and got it out of him. Otherwise, it stays in your system. So all he had to do was just give him that cross and have it get into his pores, into his system, and it's in him. So that's why it just totally suckered him into everything he was believing, what was going on. So,
all right, we got another email. This one's from Jonathan Harrison. It says, "Oh my hell, you've turned me into a Daredevil fan. Well, technically I guess the blame goes to Kevin Smith and Mr. Joe Q, but you pushed. I've never been much into Marvel at all, just been testing the waters lately, and I thought your Book of the Month pick was a great place to start. I really love Joe Quesada's visuals. Paired up with Smith's fantastic dialogue, it's win-win. I was a little worried at first about the religious elements Smith brought to the table. I was like, oh great, more dogma. He really surprised me by pulling it off. He shared a true love for the character that I think has rubbed off on me. My only question is, where do I go from here? I've heard mixed reviews of David Mack's run on Marvel Knights Daredevil. Is it essential? Great? Mediocre? Should I skip right past that straight to Bendis? I've picked up Miller's Born Again trade and plan on reading it soon. Thanks again for guiding a blind DC fanboy into the light. Well, Kevin, I mean, I could... they're having a secret confab. So well, first of all, if you bought the Born Again trade, just read it right away, because if you want to read more Daredevil, you don't have to look any farther than what you're holding in your hands.
To me, to me, my favorite comic story ever is Born Again. I have, and I don't like to really pick favorites, but to me, that is one of the most powerful stories I've ever read.
It was good.
That was very good.
That was, like I said, I knew we were going to eventually talk about it, because I read, just to piggyback what you're saying, I guess I was collecting a lot of Marvel, and Daredevil was one that I started. I think that one Harlan Ellison story where he's trapped in the mansion was like
208, 209, yeah.
So I started reading that, and then I got, had about maybe 10, 15 issues, dropped out, then I picked it up again, and saw that cool cover, Apocalypse. I didn't even know it was the first issue. I just picked it up, and I was like, whoa, what's this? And then every cliffhanger in that book it just kept going, and I'm like, oh my God. The story is amazing.
To me, one of the most powerful stories. I mean, it's so character-driven. I mean, it's really a hell of a journey. And this is my second favorite Daredevil story next to Born Again. And almost I could say my second favorite story all over. But I don't like to categorize that. But I will state that Born Again is my favorite comic story. So in Daredevil sagas, it's Born Again and then Guardian Devil. Those are the two most powerful Daredevil storylines, in my opinion. So.
Right. And if you're reading Frank Miller Daredevil, then you can. There are 3 Frank Miller Daredevil Visionaries trade paperbacks out. I guess Born Again is in the third one, but the first it's the second
No, it's
one?
not.
It's not in the third one?
Visionaries only cover his issues from 158 up to 191, and Born Again was a separate entity back in issue 227 up to 233.
Okay.
234. So no, it's not included.
But you get
in
the
the
whole
Visionary.
Elektra stuff.
Well, you get the whole setup of what Frank Miller did for Daredevil, because up until Frank Miller and I got to give credit to Roger McKenzie because he was the writer on the book, and Frank Miller was the artist. So for quite a few issues, Roger McKenzie was still the writer, and he started really taking Daredevil in a new direction, and then Frank Miller took over for that, and then he just totally blew it wide open. Because up before that, I mean, up until like issue 100, up until when McKenzie came on the book, which was in somewhere around the early 150s or late 140s. I think it was in the 140s. A lot of that stuff was not really good stuff. I mean, it was pretty lame, flat stories. And Daredevil really wasn't going very far. In fact, I think it was a bi-monthly book, because it just wasn't selling that well, and they were only putting out bi-monthly. But you get in those Visionaries, you get to see what Frank Miller really did with Daredevil, and really built as far as the character.
And you also get to see his art style develop. Because in the first couple issues, he doesn't look like anybody special. He just looks like an artist. I mean, you see Frank Miller elements, you see some lips, and you see some other things that you go...
Shadows and things.
Yeah, now that's Frank Miller, but... the panel to panel, you wouldn't notice, but then you start to see him become Frank Miller, and that's always fun for me. When you love an artist, you look back at his mediocre work and you see his style develop. That's cool.
What you don't get in those Visionaries is you don't get the letter columns, and I had those. I've seeked out a lot of those. Is that seeked out? Yeah, that's right.
Sought
out. Thank you. I knew that was wrong the minute I said it.
That was frickin' swear.
Yeah,
frickin' swear.
And every letter column had at least one or two where they were not quite so happy with Frank Miller's version of it. They thought he was too violent.
Oh yeah.
that was the big thing. I think it was that he was too violent. Like all of a sudden, the book became too. Which, when I read it, I'm going, "This is violent," but I got to remember when it came out.
Taking context,
Yeah,
It was like
early
81
80s.
or something, right? Or
Yeah.
82? Or...
Well, he took over in the late 70s, actually.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, Daredevil 181 came out in like 1981, 82.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, when he came on in 158, he was in 78, 79. I think it was 79 when he started on the book.
Yeah, I just find it interesting that now that's looked at as one of the, and I guess that's true of a lot of the stuff.
A lot of the stuff, yeah. You'll find that going back and reading it now, it's nothing. But back then, at that time, I mean, that was the grim, gritty. That was the beginning of that era of getting real dark with the character.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, I mean, there's a wonderful website called manwithoutfear.com. It is one of the most informative comic websites beyond Daredevil, but it is Daredevil, and this guy does a fabulous job. And I got to meet and talk to a lot of other hardcore Daredevil fans. And there are some that, to this day, don't like Frank Miller's Daredevil.
Wow.
They like the Stan Lee Daredevil and the Roy Thomas and, those guys, Marv Wolfman. And, up until Frank Miller takes over, some don't even like Man Without Fear, which I find is really incredible because, I mean, that is such a wonderful book. It's such a great year one type story. And,
right.
But some of them don't like to take that in concept because I've gotten into heated discussions, not arguments or yelling or anything, but heated discussions with the way Frank Miller sets up Matt Murdock and being trained by Stick, where he's being taught to extend his self, his essence, to really, taking in everything rather than having a radar sense and having powers. It's true expansion of self is what he set up. And there's a lot of hardcore Daredevil fans that don't believe that. That's his interpretation. It's not part of continuity as far as we're concerned. Wow. He has the radar and blah 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 blah. So I
think they don't have to be mutually exclusive. You can have radar, but any kind of martial arts is you train
right.
to become hyper aware.
Right.
Yeah, because that was
you let your body take over. You take your brain out of the picture. You let your body do all the work, and that's what he's saying. And then so you can be a good martial artist. Oh, and look, I also have like a radar, which helps me even more. But that doesn't mean.
Yeah. Because that's the part in the movie that I go, no, sorry. He gets that radar sense, and all of a sudden he can start flipping, and I was like,
they lost a lot there.
Yeah,
you got to train too.
You have to train. You have to.
And who's gonna? I mean, you anybody cannot just sit there and all of a sudden just start doing gymnastics and doing flips,
right?
And,
without a trainer or mentor or something.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
And then to be blind yet besides.
Right.
I don't care if you have a radar sense or not. It's just not feasible. And that's why it's so wonderful to read Man Without Fear, because you really get the whole background behind it and how he became Daredevil. And Stick plays such an influential part that was just a big miss on Hollywood doing their interpretation of Daredevil.
Hey, and to answer this guy's other question, the David Mack run on Daredevil, I think you're going to hear a lot of different opinions on this. I know my wife and I have two different opinions. The issues that followed the Guardian Devil that were written by David Mack and drawn by Quesada, I didn't mind.
No, they were
and
pretty
the
good,
introduction
actually.
of the Echo character is pretty cool. She's an interesting character. But then there were later on down the line, in the middle of the Bendis run, there are David Mack issues that he wrote and drew. Personally, I was not a big fan because his art style is a very interesting art style. He takes cuts things out and pastes them all together and mixed in with his pencils and everything. His pencils are very good.
Oh yeah.
But when he mixes it, it's like mixed media or whatever you want to call it. And I'm not a big fan because I just like traditionally drawn comic books. Now, my wife, on the other hand, who went to art school, she loves all that David Mack stuff. I mean, I'll be completely honest with you. In that second Mack run, I read like the first two issues, and then I just put the rest of them on my wife's pile, and I didn't bother reading them because I just couldn't. It wasn't my thing. I appreciate the artisticness of it, but it wasn't for me. But my wife just devoured them. She's like, "Oh, those are so great! I love those issues. Where can I get more of this guy?" She met him at San Diego. He gave her a bunch of issues of Kabuki because she loves it. She's all over that. So it's a personal thing. If you can get through the artwork, the story was not horrible. It just I just couldn't get past the artwork because it wasn't my bag.
Even in the Quesada drawn issues, he would do like layouts for like a large splash page or something like that. And I also liked that because there was like some color pencil effect.
Well, and he did some children's drawings and things.
Yeah.
She was telling the story from when she was a kid and her grandfather or somebody was teaching her. So she has lots of drawings, like they were drawing like children. And
it definitely put his mark on it.
Right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And you see a difference in style. Like if you look at those issues and look at the other ones that you're talking about back in from 50 to 55, I believe it is.
It's different. 51.
51 to 55. You're right, because 50 was the King
anniversary
of
thing.
Hell's Kitchen. Yeah. But I mean, he did another storyline in there too.
Did he?
That Mac did the artwork on. It was about that child with the frog man was the villain.
Oh yeah, now those issues were really
great.
good.
Those were great. I mean, the only problem I had with the whole Maya saga is that I thought it was too soon to introduce a female love interest again. I mean, you just went through this whole powerful book with the death of Karen Page, which was very powerful and very well done. And at the end of it, he talks to Black Widow, which is one of his closest friends and lovers, so to speak. And she tells him at the end of the book, before you get involved with another relationship, take a look at yourself and take a look at what's around you and what's the things and look at your patterns, and take some time to really learn and know yourself before you. And, and it's like 2 issues later, he's getting involved with this other character. And that, to me, I just thought it was kind of out of context. However, the rest of the story I thought was interesting. It was fun to read. And when he was doing the artwork, even as he took over for Quesada, because Quesada was having trouble keeping up. So he took over and started drawing like Quesada to kind of blend it in, but then still did his own little stuff yet besides. And I thought that was good. And then I enjoyed that other saga that he did with the Frogman and the little boy. And,
that was really good.
But I got the same feeling. I read 51 to 55, and I wasn't as taken as I was with the other runs that he had done on the series. And I enjoy his artwork. I don't mind it. I think it's different. It's definitely different. And and it is interesting, but and I enjoy it most of the time. But those couple issues that he did in the 50s, I wasn't that taken by them as I was this other stuff.
Now, do you have a comment?
I want to ask you guys about the first email mentioned the letter that Karen Page wrote, and we talked about it a little bit. But now I'll be honest. When I read that letter, and I want to know what you guys did, I teared up. I mean, my wife's sitting there wondering what the hell I'm tearing up at, reading a comic book, and I'm like, you gotta read this letter.
You're a sissy boy.
Well, hey, I'll agree, man. I am anything with wives, kids, fathers, man. I'm sappy. I am totally sappy.
How many people cried at the funeral? I mean, I can honestly say when I sat there and read, didn't you?
No. I didn't cry at the funeral. No, I did at the letter.
No, you're a sissy boy. No, I'm kidding.
When I read
letter, I didn't cry. I was just very touched.
I had a lot. I was.
My
close.
balls were in a vice at the time. That might have been what made me cry.
That's one of the first.
Jamie's rolling his eyes over there like, you bunch of morons.
For those of you listening, Jamie's still alive. He's still here. He's not sleeping. He's just
no. It's basically because I disagree with just about everything we've said so far.
Well, say it.
Yeah,
I want to hear.
Well, I'm just kind of waiting.
He's picking his moment.
He wants his moment. Let's all go in the other room. We'll let him have his show.
No.
Do it now.
It's not going to be long. It's when I initially read this run, I enjoyed it. I will admit because I didn't see what was coming. I honestly, when they revealed it was Mysterio, I was like, damn, I didn't see that coming. I honestly didn't. And also, I think maybe because it took, a whole year and a half to finally get these 8 issues out that, maybe each issue was a little more powerful. But when I sat down and reread these, this was just your basic setup story for a new series. It brought a little bit of old stuff, cleared up some crap that they wanted to get rid of. They got rid of Karen Page. They got rid of, set him in a new direction. Put him back into a brownstone. The brownstone was Foggy. Got him out of the relationship Foggy had with his mother, away from that law firm that they did. Used him. I won't say used, but used a second-rate villain. Cool. It was cool. Got rid of him. And just it was a whole setup, just for a whole new series. And sitting down and reading them all in one shot, which I pretty much did in about an hour and a half, 2 hours, it just didn't have any real emotional feel for me. When I read it the first time, it just didn't stand up. Whereas I've read other things that have stood up. I mean, Crisis, it was the third time going back to our first book. Third time I read it, and it still stands up. Each time I'm finding new things, and it was just as emotionally powerful. reading it that third time that I had reading it the first and the second time. Reading this, I just didn't have.
Can I just ask? Do you have a problem with setup stories?
I don't have a problem with it,
okay.
but it wasn't. You guys are kissing this like it was, frickin' Paris Hilton. She was down on you. I can't. I don't know. I mean, I just don't feel.
I just wondered why you picked the setups, because Crisis is, if you think about it, it's kind of the same thing.
This was just.
Where's his mic? I'm turning it down.
It was almost like a run-of-the-mill setup story. It just
oh!
I know. Hey.
And that's why we're doing Book of the Month Club, right?
But I mean, I enjoyed the read the first time I read it. It just did not stand up to me the second time I read it.
That's because it's 5 years later or 7 years later, and you're just more cynical now.
It's quite possible though
That's right.
It's quite possible though that it's more along the lines of that was new then, and now I've seen other things like that, if you know what I mean.
Right.
That was like.
It's the whole Watchmen effect.
Let's say for like some people.
Well, I mean, all the things that Bendis has done with Daredevil have been explosive, and so this doesn't seem so explosive.
People who read Watchmen now, when we tell them, some of us oldsters who were reading it when it first came out, and we're like, "Oh, this is powerful stuff. This is great stuff," and that has held up for me. I have gone back and reread it, and it has held up for me. But someone like Brian who comes along, we're telling him, read this, it's the greatest thing, and he reads it and he goes, that's kind of what I felt when I read this. I read it, so that's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of big surprises. I mean, the page when Karen Page says, "I have AIDS," you're like, "Holy shit! No, this can't be." I mean, this is this wonderful person, the Daredevil. Oh my God, how can she have AIDS? That's incredible. And and the same thing when then she dies, when Bullseye kills you, you're like, no way, no, this can't be happening.
Come on, not again. I mean, Bullseye killed Daredevil's girlfriend again. This is the second time he's done it. I mean, this isn't something that is just thrown out there.
And he just
gets
value. Away. He loses a couple teeth and he gets away.
So I mean, it's not done in a shock value thing. I felt that this is one of the true deaths of a comic character that was done very well, written very well, thought out, and means something. So, and she's been dead since, and I hope to God she never comes back again.
God, how could she?
Amen.
But I mean, the thing that I look at with Jamie's opinion, and I do respect your opinion.
We could ask that Magic 8 Ball. Is Jamie crazy?
But see, the thing that I can...
Very likely.
He's on medication now.
Enough said. No, the reason I can say that, and I can understand where you're coming from, because I read Identity Crisis, and I read... the death of Sue Dibney, and I had the same reaction. It's good reading. I enjoy reading the books. But I didn't cry. I didn't get all teared up. I didn't get all emotional. But see, this has such a history with me that these characters mean so much to me. After reading Born Again and having her come back after 20 years of not being in the book, and to have it come back in that way and to tear him down and rebuild that character, and then... have some more history behind it, and then have this come into play. There is so much to these characters and so much that means between these characters that it's very powerful for me, where I can understand if you don't have that history that it might not come across as powerful for you.
And that's, I mean, I knew once I started saying this that you were going to have that reaction, because I know the emotional, weight you have put on this, because your love of the series and everything like that. It would be for me the same way as maybe, I'm just trying to think of a series, the Avengers and something,
or something like Bone, or
something
or something.
It was
like killing him and
no spoilers.
It was the same with me with Blue Beetle to a certain extent. Although I know your opinion on that. That was a character I loved because of how they wrote him back in '87 through that series. I fell in love with that character, and for me that hurt that they killed him off like that. Where they shouldn't have done it that way.
Yeah,
didn't quite hold up.
For me, and you keep going back to Born Again, and maybe one of the reasons was I hadn't been a big Daredevil fan, so I got this, and in the interim of reading this for the first time and now reading it for the second time, I've read Born Again, and I looked at Born Again as they pretty much did the same thing to him in Born Again, but they did it better than they did in this one. This one was more almost Born Again light, where they did it. It set the same story up. It took him from one point, tore him down, and built him back up again. And this way, they took him from one point, didn't tear him totally down because he never let it totally break him. And then it built him back up again to go on for the rest of the series of what Bendis has done. So maybe that's what I'm just saying. It wasn't.
I don't think they tried to hide
quite
the
as
fact
powerful
that this was Born Again related, though.
No, it
Do
wasn't.
you
it wasn't
feel that
something,
way, or
I mean,
No. I don't feel they were hiding it.
Oh, okay.
I just felt that it was almost ground that had already been gone over better, with just a few surprises thrown in that you didn't see.
Yeah, and that for me is what makes the surprises even better, because you thought it was going to go that because I remember reading and going, well, this is obviously Born Again related, but then to put the spin on it that is just somebody just messing with him in a different way, not even that,
and it's not even like
that he really wanted to even bring him down. That's what I got, and that's what made him sad. It made Mysterio so sad.
Well, yeah, because I mean,
He's
you're
dying
thinking
and
like
he's got all the
you think Daredevil, you don't think Mysterio,
right.
So to somebody to play such a grand scheme on him, you weren't thinking Mysterio. You're thinking
just
like
for a grand
Jester,
exit. That's all.
Because he couldn't get Spider-Man, so he picks the next
Right,
best thing.
Because the whole clone saga was going on, and Mysterio thought, well, the Spider-Man I would take my revenge on might not be the Spider-Man that I've fought all these years. So who's my next step? And he thought, well, I'll take out Daredevil because I just fought him recently. So, it's like a whole different aspect of it. But I do agree, when you read it, it is kind of a tear-down growth story. But I think that's important when you're doing a story like this, especially a setup story, because you're getting the readers into the character as he's going through the journey, pulling him down, and then he's building back up. I mean, this ended a lot more cheerfully than Born Again did.
Guy with his head blown off.
You know what I mean? I mean, to end up getting that whole, insurance policy through her getting, 7-figure settlement because of insurance policy with Karen, and then she left him that other
which
letter.
Which is great because it's Fisk's money.
Exactly.
Which is even better. I mean, that's...
So it's a very wonderful ending, and it's like if you look, it starts out in the beginning with him in the confessional, and it ends with him in the confessional. But it's total different, To
do my father's work.
Exactly.
To do my father's.
So, I mean, I see similarities with the storyline, so to speak, as Born Again, but it's not as powerful as Born Again. And then you look at Born Again for what it was. When has something like that ever happened to a character in any comic? To be torn down that drastically, that quickly, and that intensely. So, I mean, again, looking at it in context, but there is similarities. It is a type of tear-down, rebuild type story. It is that kind of growth. I can see that.
You're right about the whole Echo thing, too. Like, you wish they would have taken where he ended of being okay with, not okay, but, like in a better place than he was when he started, and really just kind of went on and either, I don't know, found a new niche in life, or I don't know, but for them to do the Echo thing was kind of, it was too quick.
I think that was forced and too quick to do. I should have held off on that a little bit.
I think that a lot sometimes with characters. They force in a love interest.
I mean, Daredevil's strengths a lot is in his love interest. I mean, look at the most powerful stories he's had has been with Elektra and Karen Page and Black Widow. So I can understand that formula with that character.
He's the Mac Daddy of the Marvel
universe.
You bet. I mean, Hawkeye's just
Tony
a
Stark,
slut, but and he's just a drunk. But I mean, as far as
but how about the little throwback to Iron Man in here when he at the end he knocks on the door and Black Widow answers as Tony and is mad and she's like, oh, Matt, you bastard, you punched him. Right? Yeah. But hey, we got another comment, and this one is an audio.
Cool.
Comment. So we'll listen. Oh, let me set this up here. I don't even know. This is from Adam Lytle. So here we go.
Hey there, Comic Book Geek Speak guys. This is Adam in Toronto. I post under the name Geeksmith on your boards, and just thought I'd send a couple quick thoughts about Guardian Devil. I'll try to keep it brief to not eat up all your time. My one minor quibble with the title is that everyone kind of talks like Kevin Smith. And this isn't always a bad thing, because he writes dialogue very well, but all the characters tend to speak in the same, quote-unquote voice. That can get kind of annoying. Just a bit. It just bugged me a bit. It's a double-edged sword, though, because he writes some very, wordy comics, which I like. I like that, it takes you a while to sit down and read the thing. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. I have more thoughts on the book, but I'll just keep it at that for purposes of this message, and you guys can take it from there, all right? Anyway, keep up the good work on the show. I'm enjoying it a great deal, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
That was a good comment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, good audio geek comment, yeah.
I agree. You definitely get, your money's worth when you're reading a Kevin Smith book.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't finish that in 5 minutes.
No, you don't finish that on
Not
the
unless
toilet.
you're the Flash.
It's just not mindless dialogue either. I mean, it has meaning. Everything that's said in that book has meaning to it.
Yeah, it's not like Claremont filling in the gaps with what the weather is like and how Wolverine has adamantium claws for the 7,000th time.
Or repetition of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Repetition. Repetition.
Well, we're great with English.
We speak the English well.
English is my second language.
I do agree with him, like in some aspect, that all his characters are way smarter than most people talk in real life. Everyone. So I understand where he's coming from with that. Like, they all have.
That's a very challenging part of writing. I have dabbled a little bit in writing, and personally, I love English, and I try very hard to write perfect English when I write anything, and as much as I can when I speak. And my father and I have discussions about vocabulary and grammar usage and all kinds of really nerdy things. And family dinner, my mom and Tasha are nearly on the floor. That's why they drink so much coffee.
Hand me the utensil.
But so when I'm writing, I say, well,
it's a fork, Dad.
That's the right. That's the way you say it. And so then every character tends to sound the same. And when I'm reading comics, I go, that's not how you say that. That's a misuse of English. Well, maybe the writer's a moron. Maybe he did it on purpose because that character is a thug and he wouldn't be speaking properly. Like, that's what's perfect about those. There are two characters in Sin City, and they speak, the two assassin guys, and they speak in really out there language, really sophisticated vocabulary, and it's a total contradiction from what a normal thug is. But the rest of the thugs in Sin City have lousy grammar, and makes that character unique. So I agree, it's very difficult to write people like morons when you're not a moron,
Or vice versa.
Well, right. Yes. And that's the funny thing about Kevin Smith is, he I don't think he ever went to college, right? By his own, I think he said that. And yet his vocabulary is vast. So the guy is excellent for someone who does not have a higher education.
And a good example of that is there is a lot of grammar words in here that are not very familiar to a lot of people. Yeah. Plus, the way he writes Doctor Strange, which is the one gentleman pointed out in his email, is totally different than what you're used to hearing Doc Strange being written in a book. I mean, it's totally different, and it's totally fits the character, and makes it, that little appearance that he had in the book was very prominent. So,
yeah, I had to throw in that snore. Sorry, man.
No, that was good. That was funny. Kevin, I did have a question for you. As a longtime Daredevil fan, were you upset at all by the death of Karen Page, or did you think that it was a fitting end to her character? Or if it hadn't been, were you a little disappointed at the time, thinking, hey, I'd like to see more of her in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why the death was so powerful, because for her to be brought back into the universe and handled so well that she wasn't just brought back in the book, and the relationship that they had was very strong and developed, and it was all because of their history. You think about it, the whole thing of Born Again happened because of her selling him out to get a drug fix. So I mean, she tore down his whole world, and you really want to look at it that way. But then at the end of the story, they really connected. They got together, and no matter what happened, they forgave each other and really were in love with each other. So it was a very powerful and very well written dynamic between those two characters. So yeah, I was upset when she died, because I wanted them to be together. Because if you read that, the issues that they're together, it means a lot. They have such a great communication between each other, and they're very open, and it's like kind of your perfect relationship kind of thing. And it was wonderful to finally have that in a Daredevil book because of his relationship with other women. It always ended either tragically or, and I'm thinking, well, this is great. Finally, they're bringing back some history that has been missing from the book for 20-some years, and they're finally getting together, and it's a good relationship, and she's accepting of him as well as he is of her, and they're moving on with life, supporting each other and being together. And all of a sudden, boom, just ripped right from underneath you. And I think that's why the death really meant something. It was as powerful as it is.
And for those of you who may not have read the story but are just listening anyway, it's not only that she died, it's that she died saving him.
Right.
Because Bullseye says, "Oh, what do you know? I missed." He was really going after Daredevil, and then she jumps in the way of, he throws a billy club at him. So everything that happened because of Born Again, she redeems herself, basically.
Which Matt states at the end when he's talking to Maggie.
Yeah, because there's that line in the letter where she's like, I can see it in your eyes, no matter how many times you may say it, or not your eyes or whatever. I know that there's a part of you that will never forgive me for what she did, and it was
I like that part. I can relate to that part where you do something you just never fully believe that the other person has forgiven you or accepted you fully as much as they say or appear to be. It just hits right to home. And I love that part about the book when I reread it again.
Yeah. But that does. To me, that the way it all worked out made it that much more dynamic and that much more powerful. So yeah, I was upset, but yet it meant something. So it wasn't just frivolous. So.
Can I throw out a quick trivia question?
Oh, sure. Please do.
One of them I had one, but Kevin will know it. What was the name of the radio show that she had?
Didn't I already say that?
Yeah, you already said it. Yeah.
But now do you remember it, Doug?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh. Do you?
No.
It's right there in the letter.
5 minutes ago.
You remember, Jamie?
Angel in the Morning?
Angel in the Morning.
See, that's my attention to detail like that is right out the window. It just...
Here's another one. Craven shot him. Not Craven. What the hell's his name? Not Mystique.
Mystique's a she anyway.
Mysterio shot himself, basically an homage to Craven committing suicide in that one Spider-Man story, the Craven's Last Stand.
Hunt.
Craven's Last Hunt. Thank you. What's the other title of Craven's Last Hunt?
Fearful Symmetry.
Fearful Symmetry. Yeah.
That's in your trivia.
That's in my trivia game.
Because I had that once, and I have the hardcover, and I sat there for like 10 minutes going, "I'm going to get it," and then I never got it.
Yeah. And that's what they do. They call it in the hardcover. It's Fearful Symmetry. In the books, it was Craven's Last Hunt.
Yeah. And I had a third one. I totally forgot it. So come back to me.
This run has two of my favorite covers that I've ever seen, and partially one because of the artist that did it was the J. Scott Campbell cover with Black Widow and Daredevil on it. And for a while I was trying to get all his covers, and then he was doing so many that I just couldn't keep up. And I like the cover to issue 8 with Spider-Man and Daredevil. It's one of my favorites. I wish it was a nice poster to hang on the wall.
And one of the greatest gifts I ever received from John Duffy at the Why I'm Missing store was when these issues were coming out, and I went in to get my books, and he knew, being such a big Daredevil fan, when issue 5 came out, they released a variant cover to that by Joe Quesada, which was just Daredevil holding Karen Page. Yeah, it's on the cover of the trade paperback. And that was the variant cover for 5. And he got it, and he saved that for me and gave that to me as my regular book.
I think he did that for me as well.
And I love that cover.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
And for those of you who don't know, the movie takes a lot of imagery from this story. Not so much the story. The story itself is the Elektra saga, basically, but the imagery of him like hanging on the cross and the final shot of him falling down into the city and shooting the wire out of his baton. That's straight out of Joe Quesada's.
All the confessional
stuff. Yeah.
Wasn't that one statue that NECA was supposed to put out? Was that the one, the Joe Quesada hanging over the cross one?
It is now. It's out now.
It is?
It is out now. They just released it. I think it finally shipped. I mean, I knew they were soliciting it for a while, but it is that cover to issue 3 where he's hanging on the cross with the billy club wrapped over it and such. That is out now.
Yeah. Cool.
This has more in it than the hardcover has.
The hardcover has like the whole
first 13
issues.
issues
This isn't just the story.
The David Mack stuff too.
Yeah.
I wanted to continue off of the other guy's email asking what Daredevil he should read, and I think, Kevin, that you will agree with me that the Brian Michael Bendis Alex Malev run has been worth every penny, and it's great Daredevil storytelling. It really changes the character. It plays off of this, I think, the way that he's darker as a result of what happens in Guardian Devil.
Sure.
And Bendis really picks up on that darkness and uses it perfectly.
Right.
And ushers Daredevil into a whole new age for him.
I mean, you can look at that trend, and you're absolutely right. That you look at how this, Daredevil was written early on, and then it was elevated a bit But then when Roger McKenzie and Miller took over, that it completely raised the bar, and that's what everything was measured off of after that with Daredevil.
Right.
Until Kevin Smith came on, and it kind of bumped it, a bit in a different direction, but added to it as well as a character. And now you can see Bendis has just took it another step. You know what I mean? So each person has acknowledged and respected what has come before and added to it and built on it. And I think those are milestones in that area where you have the Frank Miller run, and then the Born Again, and then you have. I don't mind Fall from Grace. I know a lot of people don't like that, but there's some things in there that I kind of enjoy. But it's not to the magnitude of what a Born Again or Guardian Devil is. But then when Guardian Devil comes out, and then also the Bendis run, which was from 26 up to present.
Yeah, and they're you can buy the hardcovers, and they're in there.
Right.
And
I think the fourth one is coming out in a few months.
Yeah, it was just solicited last previews, and
they have all the trades for all of that whole run.
And that's just I know Shane.
Yeah, I was just going to say. Now, while I think I would enjoy the story a lot from what I've heard of it, I stopped because I personally couldn't get past the Malev artwork. And I know you guys are such big fans of it, but it's just not my favorite.
The book perfectly. And I can't even picture anyone else drawing it now.
Yeah, it's grown too. Like if you look again.
Oh yeah.
Him as an artist. You look at when he started and what he is at now. That last issue 75. I looked at that and it was just like, wow. I mean, I was really
impressed.
When
he did the Golden Age stuff.
Yeah, where he kind of did the popish kind of.
Yeah, wow, that was cool too.
And then they did some black and white, in that storyline as well, which people have been clamoring for as far as Malev artwork. They've seen as black and white, and they're like, wow, just do Daredevil in black and white, but the publisher won't allow that. So they did give you a little bit of that in the Golden Age storyline. So you kind of got the pop art, you got the black and white, you got the Golden Age kind of stuff, and you got the present time. So it was a nice little mix of things.
Have they announced who's going to be handling?
I think that's going to be announced at Wizard World Chicago, which is like another week or so.
And we talked about this way back in another podcast. I really think they should just
let it go.
Let it go for like 5 months, 6 months. You know what I mean? Like, but to create, like an interest.
To let it kind of diffuse, sort of way.
But don't start at number 1.
No. Just let that era end, and because
with some respect.
Yeah, because it's always good. First of all, whoever comes on next is always going to be compared to Bendis,
exactly.
And I think that part of me thinks that's not really fair.
It's not.
Like after a run like that, you should.
It was 50 solid issues of fantasticness. So.
You should be able to put your own mark in without this shadow hanging on. What's that?
Fantasticness.
Who said that?
Brian.
Mr. Literate.
I was being silly.
Oh, okay.
I was playing to our theme.
Right.
Now he says it's silly.
Yeah, now he says it.
Now, I will say that after listening to you guys talk about it after all these years now, I've considered picking up the trades and trying to read through it.
I have the hardcovers, borrow them, and since you don't have to spend any money, it can be easier to look at Malev's artwork if you're not into it, and then tell me if it doesn't grow on you.
Yeah.
I just want to throw my 2 cents in. I love the current run of Daredevil myself, and I'm not in any way, shape, or form a huge Daredevil fan, but it's been some of the best stuff out there. It's the one constant Marvel book next to Avengers that I've been picking up, and I mean this last storyline, not to give anything away, but it's going on what. Kevin, like 5 issues, 6 issues so far? The Decalogue?
70. Yeah, started issue 70. And
this last issue, which I read, I think 74, was the first issue that actually Matt Murdock was in. This storyline is just so good. You don't even. And I suddenly realized when they brought him in, I was like, damn, that's right. He hasn't even been in this. It's just that good of storytelling. What he's doing with it, I just can't. I'm going to be very sad to see this run in because it really, from some of the crap Bendis has been doing, not crap, but some of the not up to his snuff stuff he's been putting out lately, this stuff, you can tell his heart is still in it.
If you enjoy the Kevin Smith Daredevil and you go to Bendis's Daredevil, like say if you enjoy the character and you go to Bendis, but if you want to follow more of Kevin Smith's writing, you could always go over to Green Arrow over in DC, the first 12, 15 issues or something.
What was that first series called?
Quiver, and then The Sound of Silence, I think, is the second one. So one of the ideas about these Book of the Month Club is that not only do we highlight these books, but we want you to, if it sparks your interest on other things, that's great. So those are 2 places you can go with this book.
And it's such a shame he hasn't done the next stuff yet.
Yeah, I wish he would come back and I mean, take another obscure character or somebody
absolutely.
who, and just...
Yeah, I think they shouldn't let him touch any A characters.
No.
Stick him with a C-list character or something and see what the hell he can do.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, because it would be good. And, well, that's what they said, we'll take Green Arrow, we'll make him number 1. And did. It went right to number 1.
That's right.
And it might be the power of his name that gets people to buy the book, but then it was a great book.
You're not going to
hold... It wasn't disappointing at all.
You're not going to hold... I mean, Green Arrow was what, the 12, 13 issues that he did for that run?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
You're not going to hold an audience and still keep that book selling just because his name's on it.
Right.
It's got to be sustenance to it. Got to be.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
And I actually considered dropping that after it, but I stuck with it, and I still read it.
Still
I'm buying those trades now, and it's Judd Winnick, right? Or no, yeah.
It was Brad Meltzer, and then it was...
Right, but now it's Judd Winnick,
Judd Winnick,
and it's still great.
Still good.
The last 2 trades were excellent. So,
I found out the other trivia question. What was the book Bullseye was reading when he was being hired?
Catcher in the Rye.
Catcher in the Rye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but did you see on the back of the book? There's quotes that says,
Yeah.
"Awesome, Walt Flanagan." All the characters from the Askew universe.
Kind of annoys me every now and then. And
funny.
Too many words, Jay.
Yes, yes, that's right.
And Kevin can't answer this question. What's Mysterio's secret identity?
I just read it last night.
Yeah, it's in the book.
Secret identity?
I
Yeah.
know it. His name.
His
real name
alias.
is
Beck.
real name.
Last name's Beck. I can't remember.
Quentin.
Quentin Beck. Yeah, good for you guys. Yeah, cool.
My prediction, though, is that I think the next writer on Daredevil is going to be Ed Brubaker. I think they're going to incorporate him to the book.
He would be a good choice. He likes that heavy-hitting crime stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look at
which
stuff
is
on Gotham, with Batman, and
Does he do Gotham Central?
yeah, he did. And then he's
Cap,
been
right?
on Cap, and everybody's loving the new Cap book. So, and I think his style would fit, and I think that's why there's a lot of speculation.
It's the artist that, because anybody is going to be more traditionally comic booky than Malev, and not that that's a bad thing under normal circumstances, but after 50 issues of that dark and gritty stuff,
Yeah.
To go back to a brightly colored, happy, but maybe they won't pick. I mean, maybe there's somebody we never heard of, or
Maybe they should
somebody
get
we're
like
just
Tommy
forgetting.
Lee Edwards.
Well, they have
He's got that same.
the speculation is Michael Lark, who has a similar style to Malev and Tommy Lee Edwards.
What's he from?
He did Gotham Central for a while at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
And what was not Transmetropolitan? It was a Vertigo series. I can't think of the name of it right now. Terminal City, and he's a very good artist. If he does it, I have no worries.
And he also did the What If Karen Page Had Lived. That
Okay.
He just put out.
Oh, and just a small aside here. If you're wondering why we're saying Alex Malev, when you look at the spelling of his name, it looks like Maleev. When Kevin and I met him at the convention like 2 or 3 years ago, I flat out asked him, I said, how do you pronounce your name? He said Malev, so I'll take it right from the source that's how you pronounce his name. So
Even because it is deceiving, even on the Bendis message boards, that he has his own message board, and his screen name, his ID name is Alex, and then parentheses sadly, parentheses Maleev. So Alex sadly Maleev.
yeah.
So it sounds like it would be Maleev, but it's not. But that's
Yeah. Unless he lied to me and he doesn't want me to pronounce his name correctly, but I will assume that he was not on crack when he told me his name. So,
Which a footnote to that is he was one of the most personable and wonderful people,
it was awesome.
a comic pro that I have ever met in my life. Up there with the Romitas, and I mean he's just phenomenally personable.
Well, we talked because we both got sketches.
Oh yeah.
Because
you
he
got
doesn't
your
have original art, right? Because
No,
everything's on the
everything's
computer,
digital,
right?
yes.
Most people probably don't even know that.
Yeah.
Well,
But he does sketches. And
So,
Right,
Kevin,
right.
you got your sketch first because I hadn't decided if I wanted to pay the $30 or whatever for a
Right.
sketch, but you did, and so we stood there and watched him draw it, and it was great.
And
then,
he talked to us the whole time.
The whole time he was drawing.
He was
he talked.
asking us more questions than we were asking him.
Absolutely.
That's what kind
he was
of person
really
he
into
was.
it,
Yeah.
and he was really pleased to hear that we liked his artwork.
Because he was asking us questions like, if I would leave Daredevil, would you still buy it?
Is this
Right.
2 years ago?
It was 2 years
2
ago.
years ago, yeah.
Yeah, and he was asking, like, if I go on another book, would you just buy that just because I'm on it? Or would you buy, So he was asking stuff like that to us and really getting a feel for...
So then I came back a while later and said, you know what, I want to sketch too. And he said, well, I'm busy right now.
And this was a Sunday, too.
Yeah,
so.
this was Sunday. It was the last day or whatever. So he says, well, I have to finish this other one and then I can do yours. He says, why don't you just come back here and sit? So I went around in Artist Alley. I'm sitting in a chair next to him, watching him draw the other guy's sketch, and then he drew mine. So for like 45 minutes, I'm sitting there just shooting the shit with Alex, and he was just totally cool about it. Just not like I was an annoying fanboy or anything. Just he was just cool. He was just a guy talking to another guy.
I think you and I spent a total like 2 hours with him.
Oh, we had to. Yeah,
easy.
And that's the cool part.
Great.
As much as I don't care for the artwork, I think that's great that he sat there and talked to you guys like
Absolutely.
that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I've only ever had that experience with one other person. That was John Romita Jr.
Yeah, he's super pleasant too.
He is. He's a wonderful human being.
So does that wrap us up here?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. Well, we'll announce our next book of the month.
So I give Guardian Devil 2 thumbs up.
Two horns up.
Two horns up.
Nice.
Two Billy Clubs up.
Two Billy Clubs.
Our next book of the month is going to be, because our fans seem to have demanded it on the message board.
And I think all of us have had interest to read it.
Yeah,
I have anyway.
I just
This
haven't.
is all
gotten
because
around
of you guys out there.
Yeah. It's going to be Robert Kirkman's Walking Dead, The Walking Dead. Everyone on our... Yeah, Volume 1.
Volume
right.
1.
I mean, everyone on the message board has just kept saying that it's a great, great book. And we've heard a lot about it, as well as Invincible and
we pimp Marvel Team
Up all the time.
Yeah.
So, and, because it's going to be an independent book next month. So we're going to go for it. None of us have read it, so it'll be a first for all of us. So when we have the discussion, it'll be the first time any of us are talking about it. The good people at InStockTrades.com have set Volume 1, 2, and 3 of the trades at 40% off for us, special extra discount.
Woo-hoo.
So go, if you don't have it, go there and buy it. And again, if Jamie, you were going to...
I was going to say, because we love.
There you go.
We're only doing Volume 1. We're not telling you to get all 3.
Right.
But I think
they
that's really
decided
cool.
to offer Volume 2 and 3 at the extra discount as well. And if you order $50 or more from there, you get free shipping. So it's and Volume 1 will only be $6.
That's it.
So it's not even a big,
great.
not a
Great.
big
Love it.
commitment if you haven't read it. So
Yeah.
I think that pretty much wraps us up. Once again, we're Comic Geek Speak, and we are doing this in conjunction with worldfamouscomics.com. And we will see you next time. Of course, I said that now, and I don't have my music queued up. I get all ahead of myself, and I start talking, and I can't even find the
And I love this music for this.
sound file here.
Let's just say our goodbyes, everyone.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Arrivederci.
Goodbye.
So long.
Ciao.